Hello everyone, welcome to my Silent Hill 2 remake, hard difficulty, no damage walkthrough. This will cover the entirety of this finale, which begins from Toluca Prison all the way to Maria's boss fight. And Toluca Prison and the labyrinth area coming up represent the worst areas of the game. This is really the point in my blind playthrough, and really on all my subsequent playthroughs of this game, where I really feel like the game starts to favor a lot of bloat and a lot of fluff just to pad its runtime. And by favoring this mentality, other aspects of the game suffer, and I think the one that suffers the most has to relate to the enemy placements, specifically for Toluca Prison, because you can see right here, this is a brand new enemy type. That enemy type right there is called a spider mannequin, and it's exclusive to this remake, but for some bizarre reason, the developers decided to put in like 5 to 6 of these enemies per room, and I think they respawn as well as you're progressing through Toluca Prison, and they are just an annoyance. Like, they are not a scary enemy, they are just an annoyance. That's all they are, and all they do is make you linger in rooms for longer than necessary so that you can dispatch them, so that they do not ambush you as you're trying to get through rooms. And it's completely random where they choose to go, it's completely random when they choose to attack. This isn't random right here. So like, that first spider mannequin I killed is always there, this one's always right there if you let him come out of the room. This guy right here is random of where he is, but luckily for me, he was right there and he was just standing still, so I was able to dispatch him with a pistol. But these spider mannequins in this room right over here, completely random where they choose to be. And we are going to activate the execution chamber in a moment, and we are going to have to run the gambit with these spider mannequins as we're escaping the other enemies. And the puzzle here is very, very weird. You just gotta flick the switches up, like how I'm doing it. As you flick these switches up, certain switches go down, but just turn them back on again. Like, this is a weird puzzle. It's like you have to brute force this puzzle in order for it to actually work properly. I don't know why it's designed like this, but there we go. All the switches are up. Now we have a checkpoint, but I didn't use the autosaves for this particular sequence. I always reserve in the manual save because I wasn't sure if restarting from the autosave changed the enemy placements up. So that's how it is. And then right here, the reason I dodge is to avoid a mannequin potentially attacking me. You can see them coming out of the cells to your right, so pay attention to the mannequin that's close to you, listen for the sound, just pay attention to what it's doing, and dodge accordingly. And right here, when you enter this cell and you break down the wall, the enemies have so much trouble getting to you. I'm not too sure why this is, but it's a good thing that this is the case, because it allows you to easily break down the wall without any hassle. And this right here is random, so you've got to kind of spam dodge or just use it at very specific moments in the event a spider mannequin attacks you. That's pretty dumb, but the rest of the enemies will not follow you. We're going to be able to get the armory key, and this will allow us to gain access to the sniper rifle. And the sniper rifle is a very important weapon to have for the double pyramid head encounter in the final part of this game. But we have some additional ammo right over here, and we're going to move on to where we need to place these weights. And people have voiced on my channel that getting 6 of these weights just really pads the runtime for this particular section, and I really agree with them. It's just very excessive. I don't really understand what they were thinking with trying to put in 6 weights and just making you stay in this area for longer than necessary, but Silent Hill 2 OG had the exact same problem with the way it padded out certain areas and made you do a lot of tedious stuff in order to make you spend more time in the areas than necessary. And the pacing in Silent Hill 2 OG is worse than the remake. I know I voiced a lot of criticism with the way the pacing was handled in Silent Hill 2 Remake, and how I said it's probably the worst paced game I've ever played, but Silent Hill 2 OG is way worse, not just because of the fact that you have the loading doors, but also because you have to waste time doing a lot of stupid strategies against the enemies because they're poorly designed. You have to waste time with a bunch of dumb puzzles. You have to waste time amassing on so much ammo because the boss fights are poorly designed in Silent Hill 2 OG, and probably the worst bosses I've ever seen in survival horror history by far. And other dumb stuff as well. Yeah, definitely a badly paced game, and the remake improves upon a lot of that significantly. And I didn't even realize how much the remake uses a lot of the set pieces from Silent Hill 2 OG, and how in certain cases the remake is worse, but most of the time the remake is better than Silent Hill 2 OG pacing-wise. But this is not a good example of how you pace a section. And look at this, like, this is completely random whether these enemies attack me or not, so I have to watch out for them as I'm trying to make my way through these rooms. And I think there is a behavior to these spider mannequins where if you're waiting in a particular room where they can't get to you for at least like 5 to 10 seconds, you're probably going to be able to progress through the rooms a bit easier because the spider mannequins are likely going to path away from you as you're waiting in these rooms. And I do use this to a certain extent later on after I get the shiv keys right here. So we've gotten rid of that line figure right there. This section, you're going to have to kill a lot of the enemies if you're going to get through this in a much more timely fashion. But right here, as I exit this door right over here, I'm going to head over to this office area, and I'm just going to wait for a bit. So this is where I mentioned that I'm going to wait at least 5 to 10 seconds in order for these spider mannequins to likely not be near this door, because they can attack you while you're in the middle of using the shiv key and when you're also opening this door, and that is a lot of downtime the enemies can exploit. But now that we've gotten inside, the spider mannequins are not going to attack you. We're going to get rid of this creeper right over here, pick up some ammo, and also deal with a couple of enemies after we get the next wait. And the line figures and the mannequins in this section right over here, they die in about 1 to 2 bullets, which is nice. But the nurses, they have full health, so you're just gonna have to use your shotgun against them. And I gotta say, guys, like I watched Carcinogen SDA's walkthrough of Silent Hill 2 OG, and goodness me, the balancing in Silent Hill 2 OG is awful. I mean, the amount of ammunition you need for the bosses, the amount of like ammunition you need for later encounters, it's absolutely absurd how much they dump ammo on you because of the fact that the enemies have so much life, and it's just stupid. And the amount of times it leads to very repetitive, mundane gameplay, and the amount of dumb strategies you have to resort to in order to save up on ammunition and to also get through these encounters in a much more timely fashion. It's just stupid with Silent Hill 2 OG. Like, that game is filled with a lot of brain-dead designs, and the balancing just completely takes away from the supposedly survival horror nature of that game. There is a reason why you don't bloat the HP of enemies in a survival horror game to an unrealistic extreme, because then you are forcing the player to find holes in your gameplay systems, you're forcing the player to rely upon dumb strategies, you're forcing the player to break the fights down to such a rudimentary level in order to streamline the whole process of taking them down. I mean, what is wrong with these developers? Like, the 2 Pyramid Head encounter in Silent Hill 2 OG, you need at least 50 sniper rifle rounds, or you can rely upon this whole exploit where you stand in a corner and you swing the Great Knife in such a way that you can hit both of the Pyramid Heads before they even have a chance to attack you, and it takes about like 5 to 6 hits from the Great Knife to take them down. And then with Eddie is already so broken in Silent Hill 2 OG and completely unfinished, and his whole concept is so retarded in that game. Oh, here's a human being for a boss fight. You know, humans normally die in about 1 to 2 shots from bullets, but no, Eddie's able to take 5 hits from the Great Knife before he eventually dies. He doesn't flinch from your shots whatsoever. He's able to hyper armor through your hits. You can't even dodge his shots when he fires that pistol at you. The gameplay systems break down so much with Eddie that you have to resort to exploits or cheesy strategies. Like, the first time you start Eddie's encounter in Silent Hill 2 OG, you have to use a metal pipe and do the overhead attack in order to stun lock him, because he has this tendency of running into you to try to punch you, but you're denying him the opportunity, and so you're able to loop him like that. And then for the second phase, you have to be so overly technical by standing behind a certain carcass in the arena so that Eddie punches the carcass and not you, and then you just repeatedly spam hits on him with the Great Knife, and eventually he'll die. And it's not like 1 hit, it's 5 hits with the fucking Great Knife. How fucking retarded is that? That has to be the worst concept you could ever bring for a survival horror game. Where is the survival horror aspect in having to do that kind of method against a human being? A human being that is able to take more hits than the regular enemies. And these aren't even like humans. These aren't even like real things. These are manifestations created by James's traumas. Why is a human able to take that many hits? It makes no sense. When you're having to resort to that level of artificial handicaps, that just goes to show how screwed up Silent Hill 2 OG is, and how completely fucked in the head the developers were when designing that game. They chose the laziest possible option ever by just giving this boss an absurd amount of life, and that's it. They didn't bother being more creative. Like, Eddie could possibly die in 1 hit, but he had the advantage of using the environment against you, or like James loses his weapons in a certain way, and you have to be very smart with how you get to Eddie so that you can eventually take him out, or stuff like that, and it could have been a pretty interesting challenge. But no, the developers decided to favor the most artificial, most arbitrary route possible with Eddie. That doesn't fit the gameplay systems of Silent Hill 2 OG, that it just comes across as completely broken and unfinished, and you can't feel anything for Eddie's death because of the fact that you just spent like 2 to 3 minutes just shooting him constantly, and also bearing witness to his dumb AI with the way he navigates the room, and just makes some of the stupidest noises possible when you're hitting him, and it's just really, really silly. It's like something out of a cartoon. I mean, what is this? How can you call that a survival horror encounter? At least I can say the remake improves upon Eddie greatly, but it still favors that stupid concept of having Eddie take an absurd amount of punishment before he eventually dies. I mean, I say absurd, but Eddie dies in, like, a few magazines from the pistol in Silent Hill 2 Remake, but he's able to spam dodge like crazy. He's able to get hyper armor, but you can at least dodge his bullets. But it's just so freaking silly. It's just so comical, the way he just shrugs off your hits. It just makes no sense. How are you meant to feel any sort of connection to this character when he dies? I mean, you can't feel a connection anyway because Eddie's a really dumb character with the way he's voice acted and the fact that he's a sociopath. I mean, this is a huge case of ludonarrative dissonance at its finest. It's something I criticized Remake Krauser for, with the fact that in the very first cutscene with him, where Leon is doing all these fancy moves against him, and Krauser is effortlessly avoiding Leon's hits, as soon as you get into that gameplay section with him in Chapter 11, you're just hitting him all the time, but he's just shrugging off the hits like they're nothing. He's able to take that many hits before eventually the cutscene triggers, and his HP just varies all the time. I mean, that is a great example of ludonarrative dissonance at its finest. But Eddie from Silent Hill 2 OG is way worse than Remake Krauser in that aspect, and at least Remake Krauser doesn't feel as broken as Eddie from Silent Hill 2 OG. That entire encounter in Silent Hill 2 OG, it literally feels like it was in a pre-alpha stage. No, a pre-alpha stage. That's how unfinished Eddie was in Silent Hill 2 OG, and the whole concept is badly executed. And why exactly do we fight Eddie and not a manifestation that he created? We fought that abstract daddy, which was a manifestation of Angela's fears towards her father and brother with the fact that they molested her. Like, why do we not fight anything like that with Eddie? It makes no sense. They should have given something different in this remake. There is nothing you can do to defend Eddie in Silent Hill 2 OG. Anyone who defends Eddie in Silent Hill 2 OG is just bonkers with their mentalities. They're not human if they're defending Eddie from Silent Hill 2 OG. How can you possibly do that? And I wish I could say that Eddie was the only problem with Silent Hill 2 OG, but he isn't. There are numerous issues with Silent Hill 2 OG that all the people who call Silent Hill 2 OG a masterpiece will never acknowledge. And that's why after a repeat playthrough of Silent Hill 2 Remake, and also with me watching Carcinogen SDA's walkthrough of Silent Hill 2 OG, I have a much greater appreciation for Silent Hill 2 Remake, and now it feels more like a fully realized game compared to Silent Hill 2 OG. There's probably going to be more to say on this particular tangent later on in this video, but I've just done Toluca Prison, and now we're on the Abstract Daddy encounter. And by the way, whenever the Abstract Daddy screams at the start of this encounter, it actually damages you a bit, so that's unavoidable damage. You'll know that I took damage because I use a health drink later on, but the Abstract Daddy is actually terrifying in this remake compared to the original Silent Hill 2. I mean, just the way he walks towards you, the way he actually looks, the way his grab looks when he's trying to grab you, like, because of the fact that we're using the third-person perspective and with the actual design on the Abstract Daddy itself, it makes its hulking appearance feel even more menacing. The fixed camera angle could never capture anything like this. I don't know why people say the fixed camera angle is a good thing in survival horror games when all it does is lead to mechanical problems, and it leads to the threats not feeling very intimidating because they look very small on the fixed camera angle. And furthermore, in Silent Hill 2 OG, the Abstract Daddy, all he did was just walk towards you, and you had to hit him like 10 times with your shotgun in order to be able to kill it. And you were in a tiny room as well, so you had to deal with the clunky controls, you had to deal with his walking speed, which may be slow, but because of how small the room is, it could make it very easy for him to catch you, and you also had to deal with the clunkiness with firing the shotgun in that game. And these factors together just made the encounter really awkward. And also, Angela was just sitting in a corner not doing anything while you were busy dealing with the Abstract Daddy. It made the fight even more silly. But here, at least Angela is just running away from this manifestation as you're progressing through this area, so it actually makes sense for her to be scared like that. So I'm glad they changed it in this remake. And also, you have to fight this guy 4 times, and the third time you deal with the Abstract Daddy, you can just hide in that little room and he'll go away. And for this final encounter, make sure that when he busts through the wall, you're not standing directly ahead of him, because he has the ability to do this lightning fast charge, and it can catch you out unsuspectingly. And I mean it, guys, it is literally lightning fast. You have no idea how fast that attack can be, so make sure you stand off to the left or to the right so that he's more likely to do his slow walk, which still looks very intimidating. And just make sure you dodge his grab by dodging to the left and right before counter-attacking with your pipe. And also, he does have the ability to strike you with the door itself, so watch out for this particular attack right here. And I just have one last hit to deal to him, and he's dead. So that encounter works as intended compared to Silent Hill 2 OG's version of this encounter. It's simple like that because they want you to save on ammunition for the later encounters. And now we have this labyrinth, and this labyrinth was in Silent Hill 2 OG, but I would honestly consider the labyrinth in Silent Hill 2 OG to be worse, just based on the fact that Silent Hill 2 OG is more unfinished than this remake, which actually feels like a fully realized game. It still doesn't mean I accept the labyrinth in this remake. I really feel like the labyrinth is another drawn-out area in this remake, just like Toluca Prison was, and it just feels like you're doing a bunch of mind-numbing repetitive tasks. At least on your first playthrough. It might feel differently on a repeat playthrough, but that's not the case for me. I still feel like this is a very drawn-out sequence, and you're doing some very repetitive, mundane, boring tasks in order to progress the sequence that has absolutely no contribution to the story. What does turning that particular dial with the faces have to do with James? What is doing any of this, like getting all the parts for the lighter, going through a bunch of time sequences with the enemies, jumping down a bunch of holes? Like, what does any of this have to do with James's trauma? I mean, I'm sure like the whole idea of jumping down a bunch of those holes means that, you know, James is likely thinking of committing suicide, or at least that's what Silent Hill is trying to make him do, but then that contradicts the Leave ending, and then this more so complements the In Water ending where James kills himself after he finds out what happened to Mary and that he killed Mary. But it's just, I don't see that as being the right way to complement that particular ending at all. They could have done something far more interesting with the Labyrinth area, but they really didn't. I mean, yes, the Labyrinth area in Silent Hill 2 OG is worse, like I've already mentioned, but this is still not serving the story in any sort of fashion whatsoever. It just really feels like by this point, the developers have run out of ideas, and all they're doing to supplement the runtime is making you repeat the same level design that you've been going through for the previous areas, and just doing a bunch of mind-numbing tasks. That's just what it feels like, and it's no different with Silent Hill 2 OG. And we also have a couple of Mandarins here, and I need to correct something that I said in the previous video. I said the Mandarins can damage you with that scream. That's actually not true. The Mandarin Scream doesn't damage you. However, there are certain events that occur in specific parts of the game that can damage you by just taking off like 1 HP. Like, for instance, later on, when you're doing the sequence of the labyrinth where you have those time sequences with the enemies, when you're transitioning between the rooms, and it does these whole moments where the walls collapse and James flails around because he's getting injured by something, that's actually damaging him. I don't know why that happens. It's very weird. And the final boss does the same thing as well. The final boss has access to a scream that can damage you by just taking off like 1 HP, and it's the same sort of animation that the Mandarins put you in, like right here where the Mandarin screamed and James started flailing around because he was being hurt by the sound. It's that same animation, yet the Mandarin scream doesn't damage you, but the final boss's scream damages you a bit. It's a little odd. I don't know why some of the events are all over the place like this, but it's not that big of a deal. I just thought I'd point this out. But we have everything we need for the lighter, and we can get out of this first area of the labyrinth, and this next part right over here, it's just more fluff. It's just more mindless level design, this and that, where you're just having to navigate rooms, fall down holes, do a bunch of repetitive tasks. I don't understand the whole point of this area. I really don't understand what this is serving the story, and it's just the same sort of walls that we have been seeing in previous areas. We're seeing the same stones, we're seeing similar ladders. I mean, it's just reusing assets from previous areas. It's very lazy, but I guess this is their way of showing that James is using the iconography that he has seen to subconsciously construct this area. I mean, that's my assumption. I mean, I don't know what the significance of this labyrinth area is to James, or is Silent Hill creating this? Like, why are we doing this? You know, this is a question I asked constantly in my blind playthrough. Why are we doing the things that we are doing? It makes no sense. Like, Evil Within always has sense with the kind of encounters that you're doing, the kind of sequences you're going through, but I just asked that question far too many times in my Silent Hill 2 Remake blind playthrough. Oh, and also right here, this second mannequin coming up, this second mannequin is broken. For some weird reason, it's not going to flinch from bullets. Like right here, look, it should have flinched, but it didn't, so I had to dodge it, and it's still not flinching. What is happening right now? And this same problem also occurs with a mannequin in the hotel area. So there are two particular mannequins in this entire game that do not flinch from pistol shots for some weird reason. It makes no sense why this is the case. But we just picked up the small key, we used it to gain access to this area, and there are a couple of spider mannequins here. There are also spider mannequins in the previous area, but you can easily get through these areas before the spider mannequins start attacking you. However, right here, after I finish off this lying figure, a spider mannequin comes from behind and nearly gets me. So like right there, he's close to me for some weird reason, and I dodged. That right there was very hairy, but good thing I managed to react very quickly. But we get through here, and we're eventually going to get to the area where Pyramid Head is, and Pyramid Head is no problem whatsoever. Because of the fact that the room is a circle, you just have to spawn him in and go the other direction, and you can easily get to his room that way, and you'll never have a chance to catch you. So I spawn him in by going on that side, and then I'm going to go the other direction. I'm not entirely sure why Pyramid Head is here. I know there's a trophy you can get where you can go to his room, and I believe this is the room we're actually heading into right now. And I know that in Silent Hill 2 OG, you can get the Great Knife from this room, I believe, but they've removed the Great Knife from Silent Hill 2 Remake for some reason, or maybe it's a New Game Plus item, I'm not really sure. I know that once you complete the labyrinth, you gain access to the Great Knife, but you're not using it as a weapon, you're using it as a tool to get past a bunch of arms. I'm not really sure what the symbolism is right there. I know that Pyramid Head attacks the other manifestations, like we saw him attacking the mannequin, and I know in Silent Hill 2 OG he was attacking the lying figures. So Pyramid Head clearly has hostilities with the other manifestations that James generates. I'm not really sure what the symbolism is right there. I think it's meant to be some kind of inner conflict within James, but that might relate to why Pyramid Head's knife is able to dispel the arms protruding from the walls. And it's an interesting idea as a gameplay concept, the idea of getting a boss close to you so that you can safely get through the area that has the arms, but it doesn't really go anywhere, honestly, and it doesn't exactly remove a lot of the fluff already instilled by this labyrinth section. But we have the bolt cutters, and now we need to go backwards. I know that shortcut tricks you into thinking that you're supposed to go that way, but you're actually not. You have to go down this ladder, so that shortcut that I opened is a lie. So do not go down that shortcut. Take the ladder back down and then go back the same way you came in and use the wire cutters right over here and just fall down a bunch of holes and get back to this general area again. And this sequence is simple. It's just a bunch of time sequences with the enemies. You don't have to kill all of them. I believe the sequences end quicker if you kill all the enemies, but I only recommend killing all the enemies for the first room because there's not a lot of cover here. So this room has, I believe, 3 lying figures and 1 nurse. I start by shooting this guy with the shotgun, and then I'm going to try to lure this lying figure over the mantle point so that he'll be vulnerable to being stomped on with the pipe. So there we go, he's dead, and now the black nurse comes, so I'm going to wait for her to get close. Although I probably should have been in a better position because that lying figure could have attacked me while I was busy trying to take out this nurse, which he's about to do right here. So I'm going to dodge out of the way, and then I'm going to finish this guy off with a shot to the leg and a hit with the pipe. And we're going to move on to the next area, and as I mentioned before, each time you go between these rooms, you'll take a bit of damage. I don't know why this is the case, but here, I just took damage. It's very odd, but this right here is very easy. All I need to do is wait for the black nurse to get out of that shimmy space, and then I'm going to go into the room where she was. I'm going to leave the door locked, and she will be the only enemy that will come after me. So when I get rid of her, I can just wait in this entire room for the sequence to end, and the enemies cannot get to me. Once this room is done, we then move on to the next room, which has a bunch of mandarins and a couple of spider mannequins. And there is actually a way to do this without ever dealing with the spider mannequins, and that's just by hugging this side of the room and just going through the shimmy space whenever the mandarins decide to attack. And the spider mannequins cannot get to me right now because I have to go to where they are in order for them to start attacking me. I don't know how consistent this is, but I believe it is pretty consistent. And I've sped this up because what else would I be talking about, really? Just wait until the mannequin is about to attack and go through the shimmy space. If they scream, try to make sure you get through and try not to be screwed by the bad detection on interacting with things. And the sequence is done, so take the time to pick up some stuff. And then this leads into the sequence with Pyramid Head. So like I said, you have to get Pyramid Head close to you so that his weapon can dispel the arms that are surrounding this hallway. You don't have to look at them, just run. He's not going to do any kind of long-range attack. He has to get close to you in order to do an attack. So as you can see right here, his weapon is dispelling the arms. And this will be the end of this labyrinth area, and we can actually get to the boss fight with Eddie. So the boss fight with Eddie, like I said, is miles better, like infinitely better than whatever the hell they settled for in Silent Hill 2 OG. So Eddie dies fast from just a few magazines from the pistol, although can you really define that as fast? I don't really think so. But restart the encounter so that you can skip the little monologue he does and you can immediately get into the fight with him. So go to where he is and then try to watch what he does. If he decides to shoot you, try to dodge. You can also stun him occasionally, but most of the time he'll try to hyper armor through your attacks. Be very careful whenever he's running away from you, because if you shoot him when he's running away from you, he'll sometimes choose to shoot you to stop you from trying to shoot him when he's running away. But I just have a couple more shots to deal to him, and that is the end of the first phase. That looked really, really stupid. How on earth does that get past development? How did the people look at what they designed for this encounter and think that this was somehow suitable for a survival horror encounter, especially when you're dealing with a human? I mean, what is up with this crap? I don't get it. But also, I made a mistake right here. This second phase, Eddie is going to stalk you for a bit. Like, he'll wait for a bit before attacking you, but I should not be on this side of the area. I need to be near the exit, and then I need to go to one of the corners near the exit, because Eddie is more likely to do his melee attack on you rather than shoot you, because as you'll see in a moment, I hear the clicking of his gun, so whenever you hear the click of his gun, you've got to dodge immediately because he will shoot you. So that right there was me dodging his shot. I don't know why the muzzle flash didn't show on his gun. Normally whenever Eddie shoots, you can see the muzzle flash. I don't know why this time it didn't show up. But I now have to go to him because he's not going to try to melee me. See, if I was standing at the corners near the exit to this area, I could have gotten Eddie to do the melee attack, dodge out of the way, get him stuck in the corner, and then repeatedly loop him with the pipe. Because anytime I do the full 3-hit combo on Eddie, I always aim my gun to cancel out of the recovery frames faster. And so by the time Eddie recovers, I can hit him again with the combo. See, there's the melee attack right there. So when you dodge out of the way and you get him stuck in the corner, you can easily like loop him and stun lock him with the pipe, so long as you aim after you do the 3rd hit on the pipe. I'm going to make a separate video where I showcase the strat that I'm discussing right now, so stay tuned for that when I release it. But we're on phase 3, and phase 3 is exactly the same as phase 1, only this time the carcasses can move. So Eddie's going to be active and trying to shoot you. He's going to move around a lot. He's going to, like, look at that. You see that? He got hyper armor. That is so stupid. This entire encounter is really stupid with its concept. It might work better than Silent Hill 2 OG, but this should never have been released on the remake to begin with. That is such a stupid encounter. It's one of the worst encounters, or maybe the worst encounter in concept rather than in mechanics, that I've ever seen in survival horror history. And we're now at the hotel after doing a really dumb sequence where you have to row a boat over to here, and it's just a non-gameplay moment. I don't know why they make you pilot that boat. It should have just been reserved for a cutscene, but I get rid of that lion figure. I then get rid of that mannequin. There's also another mannequin right here. And I don't know if it's just me, but I think when you return to this area later on to use the room 107 key, these mannequins revive, and 3 of them actually come after you. So I believe 2 of them revive, and then another one just comes out of nowhere when you get back to this area for some weird reason. But this area isn't as long as I previously thought it was. It's actually very short, but you need to go up here, and then we have this puzzle right over here. This puzzle is very simple. I think it's the same between all difficulties. So pick up the books in the following order just to make it easier on yourself when you're placing them, and just place the books exactly where I place them, and you will solve this puzzle. And then for the suitcase puzzle that is inside of this room right over here, the code on hard is love and lust. And once we do this, we gain access to the employee elevator key, but we're not going to use it just yet. We're instead going to go to this room and grab the room 202 key. And there's also a ripe apple that we need for a puzzle. There's also a rotten apple that you can collect at the start of the hotel area, like outside. And I'm not really sure why they put it there. I guess that's just there to save time, just saving a few seconds. But it has the same outcome for the puzzle where it just generates that figurine. And then right here, I'm going to stealth attack this nurse. That's one of the few times where I don't get screwed by bad detection. I think the only reason you get those bad detection moments is when you're trying to do the stealth attack at long range. Because I think when you're doing it at long range, the game misinterprets it as a combat attack rather than a stealth attack. So if you get close enough, you're more likely to get the stealth attack option. But going all the way over here, we're going to deal with two lion figures. One of them is crawling, the other one is standing. He's going to attack me in a moment right over here. So I'm just going to dodge out of the way, shoot him in the leg, and then get rid of him with the pipe. And then enter room 202 to do another puzzle before moving on with the rest of this area. And in Silent Hill 2 OG, abstract daddies actually spawned in the hallways of this particular hotel. I don't know why this is the case, because they're supposed to be specific to Angela. Is it because Angela somehow ends up here? Because we do encounter her later on in another cutscene, which I've never watched because I didn't see the point in it. I just wanted the game to be done. But like, she dies on like a flaming staircase somewhere. Like, is it because of her presence that the abstract daddies just spawn in Silent Hill 2 OG, but then they thought it didn't make any sense, so they just removed them? And plus, it would just be really dumb to have multiple enemies, like multiple boss enemies, just show up, and it completely removes any kind of special nature to them. Is that why they removed them in Silent Hill 2 Remake? Because if so, that's a good thing. Why they appeared in Silent Hill 2 OG, I have no idea. I think Masahiro Aito's explanation was that the abstract daddy that we see, that's not actually what the abstract daddy looks like to Angela. Apparently, the abstract daddy looks a lot more terrifying in Angela's eyes compared to what James views them as. So apparently different characters are able to see the same enemy type differently because they look different in their eyes. That just feels like a concept they introduced out of nowhere. I don't know if the other Silent Hill games have ever used this concept before. I know Evil Within has a similar concept, because at the start of the Assignment DLC, there is a quote from Marcelo Jimenez which mentions that they existed together, but each saw things in their own way. It was as if each patient's consciousness filled in the blanks, creating their own reality. So, like, the experiences that Sebastian goes through are slightly different to what Kidman goes through. I don't know if this is actually a psychological concept or this is actually a physics concept, because to me, it feels like it's playing upon the whole idea of like eyewitness reports being notoriously unreliable, because each eyewitness gives a different account of what happened, and each is not exactly pinpoint accurate with the actual events that occurred. I don't know if that's what Tango Gameworks was trying to go for when they made the Assignment DLC and the Consequence DLC, but it's certainly more interesting than in Silent Hill, because Silent Hill is all supernatural all the way, so it's not very interesting that way. But because Evil Within is based more in science, I can actually ponder these kinds of questions, which makes it far more interesting. But we now have this encounter with the Mandarin, and you've got to move very quickly when getting this bookshelf out of the way and hitting this wall once. You can get in 2 hits before the Mandarin starts to attack you, which I probably should have done, but I still think it's very risky, because there is no telling when this Mandarin chooses to do its next attack, and that attack it just did, it will instantly kill you on this difficulty. So that is why you can't just simply mash the wall when this guy is coming towards you. You've got to get him away before you actually decide to go for the wall. It's honestly a dumb encounter. I don't really like this encounter, and it's just confusing why this Mandarin is here, because I thought they were supposed to remain under floor grades. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to somehow be on the ground. Like, they can just detach from the ceiling and safely be on the ground, because I thought the whole symbolism was if they let go of the ceiling, they die. I thought that's how it was, so it doesn't really make sense why this Mandarin is here. It's a really dumb encounter. I don't like it. And we have some more encounters with Mandarins coming up, and you don't have any weapons, and you don't have the flashlight because you had to put them away in order to get inside of the elevator. Even if I had weapons, I would not be dealing with Mandarins. Mandarins have so much HP, and they're pretty awkward to fight. But this is also random right here. After you get the videotape and the key, there's no telling where these Mandarins go. I think their pathing is random, and the time it takes for them to start moving when they stand still is also pretty random as well. But I see my opening, and now I'm going to get to the basement. There's only one Mandarin in the basement, but he isn't so much of a problem to get past because he's always in the same initial spot when you're getting down here. So you need to go through this door, grab the valve, and then wait here for a bit. He knows where you are for way longer than necessary, so just really take your time before you actually go through the shimmy space, because you might have noticed he tried to slam me because he saw me for a bit. Like, he just kind of lingers in the area a bit too long. But once you're here, he can't get to you. And once you get inside of here, you can grab this figurine right over here. Then you need to go back to that closet where your stuff is, because you also put your key items away. And then once you have all 3 of the figurines, you'll be able to solve the music box puzzle. And when you solve it, I believe it eliminates some of the enemies, but not all of them. But most of the enemies are not going to be in your way when you're getting over to room 312. So place the figurines in their slots. Make sure the configuration looks exactly like that when you're turning the wheels. Turn each of these keys once and then activate, and you'll be able to solve this puzzle and get the 3F key. So right here, we're going to go all the way up to the 3rd floor, and I take the time to pick up some stuff. And then we're going to transition to the otherworld version of the hotel after review the videotape that James has. And I've completely cut out the Otherworld section of the hotel because there are no threats here. So we're just going to transition directly to the double pyramid head encounter. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is one of the greatest encounters ever made in Silent Hill history. And it's probably the best boss fight in the Silent Hill series by far. And I think the second best would honestly be Mary or Maria in this game, because what they have done with this encounter is made a really great double boss fight where you've got to watch both of these enemies carefully and dodge their attacks accordingly. You got to keep on moving to ensure that they do not bottleneck you or flank you. It's a really well-designed encounter. It is absolutely amazing. The music is fantastic. I mean, there are a couple of weird moments where the Pyramid Heads can do weird things with their behavior, but it does not detract from how amazing this encounter is. So you've got to unleash everything you have with your sniper rifle. The amount of ammo I have right now is perfect for dealing with these Pyramid Heads. Like I said, these enemies will not take an absurd amount of punishment like they do in Silent Hill 2 OG and drag out more so than necessary as to make this fight completely stale. It is absolutely amazing that they got the pacing of this fight right. And so keep on strafing left and watch them very carefully, dodge their attacks accordingly. Whenever the Pyramid Heads try to slam you with their spears, they'll usually follow up with a couple of attacks. So this guy is about to do the slam attack right now. He's moving very fast. He's holding his spear up, so I know the attack is coming. I dodge, but he's going to follow up with another attack. There's a slam. He's going to do the jab right now. Usually when they do the jab, it's an indication that it's over, but not always, so be very careful of that attack. I'm still keeping my distance. They can sometimes throw their spears at you. Like, they've really gone out of their way to make these Pyramid Heads more aggressive and more deadly to encourage the use of the dodge system and to make it far more engaging than how it was in Silent Hill 2 OG. Silent Hill 2 OG's version of this encounter might as well be chalked up to circle shoot, circle shoot, circle shoot, and just repeat that process ad nauseum because it took 50 sniper rifle rounds to finish off these Pyramid Heads. It was just really stupid, and they did absolutely nothing, and they had to do nothing in order for the controls to work properly, in order for the awkward gameplay to not be so much of a hindrance, and it made the entire encounter feel so soulless with its implementation. What the hell were the developers thinking when they designed that encounter in Silent Hill 2 OG? I mean, the jump in quality from the OG to the remake is massive. This fight has to be appreciated because it is incredible. And now we have the final boss fight with Maria or Mary, depending on whichever ending you get. This is the boss fight with Maria in my case because I get the leave ending. But I'm going to use the pistol to open up the fight here. Anytime Maria spawns in these mods, I'm going to fire at them with the pistol. It takes 3 shots from the pistol to get rid of the mods, and only 1 shotgun shell or 1 sniper rifle round in order to get rid of them. But I've dealt enough damage to Maria that she's going to come at me instead of fire the mods at me. And the pistol is useless for the other phases, so I'm using it here. Whenever Maria is at this distance, you need to dodge away from her, and then you need to dodge forward, and this is where I'm going to be using the pipe to my advantage in order to deal more damage to Maria. Like, this is an actual boss fight. The one in Silent Hill 2 OG, like the final boss fight with either Mary or Maria, was so badly designed that you had to use an exploit where you had to deplete your entire ammo reserves and circle this entire room for 10 minutes. That's how badly designed it was in Silent Hill 2 OG. That was the only way you could do this boss fight no damage, because doing it normally, you were opening yourself up to so many poor designs with her. If it was going to be like that, they might as well have not made a final boss fight with Mary or Maria. The final boss should have actually been the double Pyramid Heads, not Mary or Maria. Like, at that point, why do you make gameplay? It makes no sense. But this part right here, you need to get in this corner and just wait for Maria to come down, and then you can shoot her. She'll only do 1 attack, but when she runs away and she roars, there is the potential for her to spawn mods right next to you. And I mean right next to you. And they can even spawn through geometry. It's really dumb that way. But as soon as you hear them spawn, run to this corner and dispatch them with your shotgun. And by the time you've dispatched them, most likely Mary will attack you, and it only takes one shot afterwards with the amount of damage I did to her. And now we have the final phase. This is fun. So dodge to the right when she does this charge attack, and then follow up with a shotgun blast. This 3-hit combo, you have to dodge them. She does get phantom range during this phase, which is pretty dumb, but just dodge so that you don't get hit by the phantom range. So dodge again, this is a 2-hit combo, follow up with a shotgun blast. Anytime she runs away, you can actually see the path she's going and also hear her running. So I'm gonna hit her on the spawn, and this is the 3-hit combo. After the 2 hits, I like to follow up with a shotgun blast before I dodge the 3rd hit. Dodging right is the most effective way to avoid these particular attacks that she does. There's the 2-hit combo. I'm going to follow up with a shotgun blast, and she's going to do this attack again, the 3-hit combo. So there's the shot with the shotgun, and then I dodge her final attack. So she does have a bit of life in this phase. It takes quite a lot of shotgun shells to actually finish her off. Not to an extreme degree, just a bit too much. But right now, she's doing this attack again. So yeah, this is really well designed. Like, this is a really fun encounter. I didn't enjoy this encounter on my blind playthrough. I had problems with it because I didn't understand how it worked. But when you understand how this fight works, it's amazing. And the music as well. I mean, the music in Silent Hill 2 OG was like this really weird metallic rock music or whatever the hell it was. I mean, why would they play that in order to form some kind of emotional connection between James and Mary/Maria? It made absolutely no sense in Silent Hill 2 OG, whereas the music in this 3rd phase, this feels like the kind of music to showcase a level of emotional connectedness between James and Mary/Maria. I mean, it makes so much sense, and it's done. The fight's over, and you can actually call this a fight compared to Silent Hill 2 OG's version of this stupid encounter. It's absolutely insane just how much of a jump in quality Silent Hill 2 Remake is from Silent Hill 2 OG. I mean, that game, I don't know why it released in the state that it ever was released in. I don't know why the boss fights were as bad as they were. I don't know why there were so many gameplay problems with Silent Hill 2 OG. I don't know why there were all the pacing issues, weird moments with the screenplay, and all this other stuff with the voice acting. I mean, some of that is preserved in Silent Hill 2 Remake, but on the gameplay side, Silent Hill 2 Remake is a massive step up in quality, and Bloober Team have really made the improvements to Silent Hill 2 incredible in this remake. But that is the end of this walkthrough. Thank you guys for watching, and you take care now.